All right, hello and welcome to the first GGG podcast of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everyone had an amazing holiday. Hope everyone had an amazing New Year's, whatever you got up to, or if you got up to nothing at all, or if you just stayed home and played video games and relaxed and chilled out. That's amazing too. How are you doing, Phil? Did you have a good holiday yourself?
I did have a good holiday. I spent it with family, which was, let me preface, very great. However, I do wish that I had that holiday you described where I got to play a lot of video games because there's a lot I wanted to play.
Yeah.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, it's been great. Really chill. I did have time to play games, and the games that I got up to playing during my holiday break, it was primarily Baldur's Gate. Played quite a bit of Baldur's Gate. So that's been interesting. I got thoughts, although they're kind of like echoey thoughts from my old ones. I think it's a really great game. I love any kind of game that you can build a party and like get to know your companions and do the companion quests and make them like you, and it's a whole little social thing, and like I love all of that. I did have an annoying gameplay moment yesterday as well. I had a couple of them, but this was the most recent one where it's pretty early in the game. You're rescuing people out of this burning building. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. And there's this guy, and he's trapped under this beam. And so I pushed the beam off of him. I got him out successfully, and I was like, "Follow me!" And I led him safely out of the house. And once you leave the house, this cutscene starts, and you start doing this dialogue with these people outside who are in the burning building. And I do all that, and then the cutscene ends, and then it puts my party back in the burning building.
Oh, whoa.
All four members of my party and the guy I was trying to save. And then he catches on fire, and then he runs out of the building and dies. And it was just like, kind of feel like that wasn't my fault, game. Kind of feel like that was your fault, and you killed him and not me, because I did that correctly. So
yeah, you didn't tell me that leaving the building would do this.
Yeah, I would put me back magically in the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a couple of quirky gameplay things there that have bothered me, but overall, very, very enjoyable game. Although I am playing it on Explorer, which is easy. Oh. So
yeah,
did you have a chance to play anything, or perhaps when you got back recently?
Yeah, I played a lot of more Avatar.
You got to beat it, man. You got to beat it.
I got to finish it now. No, it's definitely one of those games where I joked about it because I was like, oh, maybe this will be good. Like when at the beginning of the year, or at the beginning of our show earlier this year, I was like, yeah, Avatar's coming out later. That'll be fun.
Right.
And then as it got closer, I was like, man, this is probably going to be some nonsense. And when I started playing, I was like, this is kind of some nonsense. But the more I've played it, the more I'm just kind of wrapped up in the world.
Yeah, and then you're kind of like, this is kind of some nonsense, I'm just some
You could name your bird and he'll say the name of the bird. I don't know. It's real weird. The lizard you fly around on.
Yeah.
But I also started playing Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PlayStation 5 because it's free if you have a certain PlayStation thing. And it's a lot better than I remember. Well, I'm having more fun with it than I remember, because I guess there was a point in Grand Theft Auto 5 where I got to and I was like, all right, I'm done. And I think I had this negative thoughts in my mind about it.
Are you talking about the multiplayer or the campaign?
The campaign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm playing it again, and I'm just like, wow, this is really fun, and it's so beautiful on PS5. So that's pretty much mostly what I've been playing.
Right on. Yeah, I went back and I've played Grand Theft Auto 5 a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, it's a solid game, good game. It's the one of the best things that Rockstar does is they have a fantastic mission variety. Where, a lot of the missions, you are shooting at people and whatnot, but whatever you're doing on that mission is so different, whether it's you're riding a dirt bike to catch a train, or you're in a submarine, or you're covering someone with a sniper rifle on a skyscraper. So it's got
True.
some good replay value there. Right on. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's kick this 2024 episode off by getting into the game releases this week, and by which there are none. So
Zilch. Whoops.
no, there
Forgot
are
to make any games this week.
yeah, there are some little teeny tiny quirky games that have released, but nothing really worth mentioning. If we're forgetting about a game that you really love, please let us know about it, and also why you care about it, and why it's a good experience, or if it's just one of those games that's good to laugh at. So, but yeah,
there was one thing that came out over the holidays that is a VR game. I believe it's called Asgard's Wrath.
Ooh. Yes, I think it's on the Quest, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on the MetaQuest. I think or exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
But according to everything I've heard, it's like what everyone has been waiting for in terms of a VR game. Like, it's up there with Half-Life Alyx as this is just a full game you could play, enjoy.
Yeah, I might check it out. I heard it's better on the Quest 3, and I have a Quest 2. But yeah, it looks really good. I've been waiting to play a good VR game for a while. But yeah, I'm glad that is doing so well. So, any others you can think of?
That's pretty
so.
much. That's the only thing that snuck through the net for me that I was like, oh yeah, this is like, I want VR to be at that place where I'm like, yeah. So many good like regular games, like a regular console. So yeah, just wanted to point that one out and be like, hey, good job.
Yeah.
That's actually Sanzaru, who way back in the day used to do PSP ports of Sly Cooper games.
Oh, okay.
It's a weird fact to know, but it's cool to see where they've come as a development team.
Sure. Right on.
Yeah.
Good for them. All right, so let's get into our first news story this week. So first up, it's kind of a quirky story. Brings a smile to my face. So a 13-year-old kid has beaten Tetris. And then this isn't a modern, redone Tetris. This is Tetris. Yeah. This is old school Tetris. And he beat the game and essentially broke the game. And to the point that the game started like freaking out because he broke the game. And no one has ever done this. And it's pretty amazing, especially because Tetris has been around for so long. And to the fact that there have been a lot of video game studies like the Tetris effect. I don't know if you know that game on PlayStation, but they do the whole intro of that game is like, oh yes, this is what the Tetris effect is. It's a study of seeing things when after you've played video games for many hours, and so that was really cool. So the 13-year-old's name, a little shout out to him, is Willis Gibson, and he is from Oklahoma. So good for you, kid. You are making big headlines, and New York Times has reported on it, and that's a pretty awesome feat. So good for you.
Other kids out there, other 13-year-olds out there playing Fortnite, getting absolutely demolished by me using aimbots on Fortnite because I want to feel like a big man. And Willis out here is breaking world records and literally breaking Tetris.
Yeah,
which is very cool and very 13 years old to do. He is living his best life by having broken one of the most essential games. So that's really cool. I watched the video too where he the moment he does it and he throws the controller and doesn't believe that it happened. You could tell that he's almost asphyxiating. He's breathing so hard.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Well, he's got a bright future in Tetris. I don't know. Maybe in streaming. Who knows?
He's like the chosen one of QA.
There you go. There you go. Look forward to that QA career.
Yes.
All right. So moving right along after that. So Star Wars Outlaws, a game semi-recently announced. We got a good look at it last year. Has a tentative release window. We don't want to jump the gun and say that it's for sure coming out this year because something always is going to happen. But it has a
True.
tentative release date for late this year, so probably holiday season. Probably looking in that October November range.
Hmm.
I don't know that we have really had a chance to talk about Star Wars Outlaws all that much. What were your initial impressions when you got to look at those videos?
It definitely. I remember being very impressed by the video footage. Also seeing like parts in the open world, like oh yeah, that is 100% like a vertical slice, like canned, like someone sped by in a speeder, but you could just kind of see it was placed in there.
Sure.
So all this to say, it looked really really cool, but also I could tell that it was a very like staged presentation of what they want the game to be like.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but if they can execute like even 75% of what they showed me, I will very happily play that game. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you? A lot of people were comparing it to like Grand Theft Auto. I wouldn't go that far. I think just having a wanted system does not make a game Grand Theft Auto, although that's what most people seem like they do. Ooh,
That's this.
it's
This is
or
the
they
YouTube thumbnail.
yeah, exactly. um, like people were like, "Oh, Harry Potter or Hogwarts Legacy is it's like Grand Theft Auto now because there's a wanted system." Like that doesn't. That's
There's a
one
wanted system.
one. Very nice, very nice. Okay.
Uh, I don't. To me, it kind of had more of like an Uncharted vibe. Like,
Yeah, I would agree with that.
would it's weird because Star Wars 1313 or 14, whatever that one was that you were gonna play a young Boba Fett,
Yeah,
similarly had that vibe. But this, I feel like they're trying to find that game of like, all right, we've done a pretty good Jedi game with Jedi Survivor. Let's get a really good scoundrel game, like a Han Solo style game.
sure.
So, yeah, I'm very excited about it, but I'm a little nervous. Ubisoft sometimes makes me a little, as
Oh yeah.
expressed by my Avatar concerns, it makes me a little nervous. But
I'll be honest. Ubisoft really hasn't been launching bangers for me lately. So I'd love to see them have a bounce back game, and I'd love to see them do a good Star Wars game, especially with how the Star Wars license has been bouncing around from company to company after EA lost exclusivity. So I think it's cool. I kind of want freedom in this game. Like
yeah,
I do want a story. I like that you're playing as a character that they designed and everything like that. But I think like, can I buy different ships? Can I make upgrades to those ships, or is my ship like it is in Jedi Survivor, where it's the Mantis,
static.
and
Yeah,
you can go aboard and switch outfits and change what your lightsaber looks like, but that's the extent of that. This feels very open world, and so with that open worldness, I'd like to have more freedom than was in Jedi Survivor. Even though I liked that Jedi Survivor was pretty linear, I think that if you're going for this open space game, then give me some freedom to do some things. So
yeah. I would love it if there was like ship mods that you could buy that, when your planet or when your ship enters a star system or a planetary system, that like normally there would be an alert to let the quarry know like, oh, there's a bounty hunter's just entered the area, so they're more
sure,
on guard. And if you could get something that spoofs it to be like, oh, I'm just a merchant vessel, so the person is less on guard, that would be great. But knowing Ubisoft, they tend to like to do like 13% plus attack damage, or
yeah, yeah. We'll
So
get some get some classic RPG percent passive bonuses and everything.
yeah,
Yeah, just let me buy a mod and have it work. How about that? How about it does a
that
function?
that'd be fun if it just did the thing. But either way, I'm like very excited to play another Star Wars game. Hopefully, they take a note from Marvel, because apparently we learned a little bit from some of the leaks. I guess I don't know if this was leak information, but Insomniac can kind of do whatever they want in terms of making Marvel games after Spider-Man. Like they've done so well that Marvel's like, oh yeah, here you go. And I think that's kind of the right way to do it, rather than being like, here, EA, make whatever you want.
Right.
Here are the rights. So let someone make a great Star Wars game, and then let them keep making great Star Wars games. Then hopefully this will be it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Moving in to our next topic. So I'm a huge fan of The Last of Us Part 2. I know it's kind of a controversial game. But so there has been some misinformation out there and some new information. So originally, The Last of Us Part 2 was supposed to be having an update or some sort of DLC, which included its multiplayer mode that we saw in the original Last of Us game. Where I forgot exactly what it was called, but it was the Fireflies versus the Raiders or something like that. Do you remember what it was called, Phil?
I don't. It might have been like clans or something like
something like that. But it was a great multiplayer mode. It wasn't very fleshed out. But it was a lot of fun because it kind of had kind of really before Fortnite took off. It kind of had that feeling of like you spawn and you don't have anything and you got to go find some stuff and put together a pipe bomb so you can fight somebody with it. So that was very exciting. But unfortunately, the rendition that was coming to Last of Us Part 2 is not going to be coming out. It has officially been canceled. However, as kind of a consolation prize, they are releasing a roguelike mode for the game, for the re-release, which is going to be coming out, I believe, in 2 weeks from now. And so it's going to be very similar. I guess, like, after we saw God of War Valhalla, do you think Sony's going to be doing a lot of these little roguelike expansions for their single-player games? Is Spider-Man 2 going to have a roguelike like mode?
I would, man, you just said several of my words all together in a sentence. Is Spider-Man? No, let's see. I think it's a pretty cool thing they're doing. It's Factions was the name of that.
Factions, that's right.
Multiplayer mode.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Okay, so Sony has been doing a thing where they are not digging in on multiplayer as much as like they had plans to, because I believe I've heard rumors that a bunch of other games that are mostly single player were supposed to get multiplayer expansions that were going to be like kind of free to play with battle passes. This Last of Us 2 Factions would have been part of that, so that it was something that was low entry, but then you keep playing, you do over and over. And I think it's because when you played Last of Us 1 Factions, that followed the trend of like Gears of War. Remember the multiplayer in that?
Yeah.
Like, it had that same sort of like kinetic action. I feel like that was the trend then, and they were trying to do the same thing here. I'm happy though that they've decided to just stick to single player and give us like some replayability in this roguelike with this and God of War. I think they're kind of more experimenting, but also it seems like Sony is planting their feet down and being like, we're staying single player. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably save on production costs. And so I've actually, they released a video right before Christmas. We had a lot of stuff to talk about, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But we got some details of like what the mode is going to be. A lot of the playable characters that you can unlock. And it looks like you can unlock a lot of the characters. And so I think you just start with Abby and Ellie at the beginning. But depending on what character you choose, that character unlocks another character. So like if you play with Ellie, she'll unlock Nina, and then Nina will unlock Sam, and then Sam will unlock Tommy, and then Tommy will unlock Joel. And so obviously you got to get to Joel.
Yeah. I just want to play more as the murderer. I mean, they're all murderers, but
what murder?
What murder? I want like a Joel skin, and I would pay a good $50 for this. I want a Joel skin that it looks like Pedro Pascal. I would pay the price of the game again just to let me play as Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, he's just in a Mandalorian outfit.
Ellie's in the little basket.
Yep. And then also something I did want to include when we were talking about this is for those who are not aware already. So, The Last of Us Part 1 has been marketed and sold to me like 40,000 times. And like, it's the remastered. It's the remastered deluxe edition. It's another Skyrim. And thankfully, they are not doing that for Part 2. So if you own The Last of Us Part 2 on PlayStation 4, which is the original game that came out, you can buy the remaster for $10. So you are paying something. It comes with the roguelike mode. But yeah, $10 for the upgrade, which is what it should be, as opposed to trying to repackage and resell me a $60, $70 game. So I'll be happily picking this up for $10. Thank you, Sony, for changing this. Please continue to do this for the future.
Thanks, Sony, for being cool about this one. This is huge for us.
We'll see what happens next time.
Well, okay, this is I think the long-term game. Like, this is part of why I love Game Pass. There's so many options there that Sony is trying to step up and be like, all right, PlayStation Plus is going to be pretty good. Yeah, we're going to give you an option to play older games on your new system, because with Game Pass, everything just plays on every system. Yeah. Now, $10 and you can have this individual beloved game on your new thing, all updated. I'm pretty excited. I think, like, hopefully this competition stays up like this so that we continue to get this type of thing from Sony. I don't know what the next sort of, like, I don't know. Can you think of anything else that should be remastered like this that you would own on PlayStation? Like maybe Metal Gear Solid, but that's like not
I
single
think
party, you know.
I'm good. My thing about remastering Metal Gear Solid is like, if you want to remaster Metal Gear Solid, go play a new Metal Gear game, because they look great, they feel great, they're already redoing MGS3. For a PS4 game, it's not quite long enough ago that, like, I would. I'm trying to figure out any of them. Yeah, I mean, probably not. Ghost of Tsushima pretty much got this treatment already. So yeah, maybe some Xbox games, but I'm trying to think of which Xbox games could do that I would care about. Maybe they could fix Halo.
Sure. This is Phil Spencer watches our show as he does every video games podcast, and he's just like, "Damn it, Paul! You say this every week.
Every week, you son of a." You can fix Halo or Starfield. You can pick one. I'll take one. So yeah, I can't think of any others to get this treatment. But you brought up Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, and want to take a moment. And I was actually thinking about doing this at the beginning of each month, where we talk about some of the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass games that are up right now. And I know for Xbox, I think on Game Pass, you guys just got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I have some gripes with that game, but overall, like, that's a 100-hour game. So that you're getting, on Game Pass. So, like, that's a good deal for real. And then also I saw on PlayStation Plus, I believe Plague Tale Requiem has also released for free. And both of those games, I think obviously there are some other games that have released this month as well, but those are the big hitters for Microsoft and Sony for January. And are you looking them up, or you look very inquisitive at the screen?
I was looking at a few things that have popped up recently on Game Pass. Okay. Specifically, one of my favorite games of the year, Remnant 2, is available on Game Pass. More recently, they added like Far Cry 6, Wild Hearts. They're kind of like I guess they're not acquiring a lot of other companies in that sense, but they just are acquiring this giant catalog of games that they're just slowly parsing out. And I think for a lot of people, Remnant 2 is like the perfect game to play on here. Because it's like, something that maybe you're not sure that you're going to dig. Right. Dark Souls with guns, I don't know. This is the good best way to try it. I think, what did they just do on PlayStation Plus? They just changed it today to, you said, Plague Tale, Nobody Saves the World, which is a fun little roguelike type top-down game.
Yeah.
And then Weird West, which
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
it's pretty cool. It's almost like a AAA game from 2010. You play as like this buff monster hunting cowboy, and it feels like part Devil May Cry, part Darksiders,
Okay.
part Gears of War,
Okay.
but set in the Old West.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's gotten pretty good reviews from everyone I've heard about it. So definitely some good ones to pick up this month.
Right on. All right.
Yeah.
You want to take our next topic, Phil?
I do. I want to talk about Wizards of the Coast because they lost 1,100 jobs, and I think this is mostly thanks to Hasbro, the company that owns them. So they let them know just before Christmas that these layoffs were happening, which really sucks.
Yeah. Yikes.
The CEO Chris Cox did this because I guess they were down a certain, like Hasbro as a company was down 40% or something like that. No, sorry, they were down 10%. Though Wizards of the Coast specifically was up 40% because of sales of Baldur's Gate. Now they also, like D&D, the movie made some decent money this year. They had Baldur's Gate. They had all of their Magic stuff, which had the Lord of the Rings,
Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
Transformers. I think they might have lost money there.
Oh, yikes.
Because it was a very expensive movie, and I think it kind of came out during the time when everyone was like, blockbusters.
Yeah.
So it's a real bummer that Wizards of the Coast, like this company that I feel like D&D is huge. They're launching a big thing next year. They have all of these brands, and specifically Baldur's Gate, that was the game of the year for so many people.
Yeah,
real. Made a huge impact. They are losing a lot of jobs despite doing some of the most exceptional work in the game space, like board games, card games, video games. They're kind of killing on every front.
Yeah, 1,100 people. That is a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
And a lot of people to lay off at once, especially right before Christmas. So, hearts out to everybody. I've been laid off. It's awful. It sucks. There's nothing really to say about it, unfortunately.
One more note: the CEO of Hasbro did take an $8 million bonus.
Wow.
I'm just saying, if we want to eat the rich.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, right. It's the worst timing to do that.
I wonder, how many jobs $8 million could have saved, and the CEO still be paid well. Anyway, okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the next.
Let's yeah.
All right. So Grand Theft Auto 6, PC port, unknown release. Did we have this on the list before? Did I put this? Did you put this? Where?
I think this might be
I think this is a leftover.
This is a leftover.
Yeah,
from a previous week.
We did this. This is. See, we're still getting the crust out of our eyes from New Year's.
We're still focused on Grand Theft Auto, which we should be. It's going to be a huge game.
Yeah,
it's going to be
but we're going to be talking about it like all year, so we don't need to get into it right now. All right, so the real next news topic is the switch to so some analysts, and by analysts I mean people who study the stock market, believe that Nintendo is going to have a major hardware release this year, and that the belief is that it is going to be the Switch 2. Now, Nintendo, notorious for mixing up their hardware, so it may not necessarily be the Switch 2, but if I had to put money on it, the Switch has been such a success. I think they stick to what works. What do you think? Do you see the Switch 2 coming out before the end of this year, Phil?
Well, I I think that they probably will. However, I also don't see it out of Nintendo's wheelhouse to rock up with the Wii 3 and just call it that.
Yep.
No, I remember hearing somewhere, I think it was, I was reading an article that I found on the games Reddit that said that the Switch 2 is more likely to be like an iteration rather than a revolution. And I
Okay.
think that's what we will see this year is something that is like, that you can obviously play all of your old games on, but something that will run them better and be able to handle like better visuals on other games.
Yeah,
It's, yeah.
that doesn't sound very Nintendo to me though, because Nintendo for me is all about like, no, this is a new machine. If you want to play Zelda on this new machine, you got to rebuy it. So
Yeah.
that sound I don't know. I don't know. I mean, definitely they need new hardware. The Switch is like maxed out on what it can do. It's just it's not it's not a very powerful machine, and that's not what they're going
Yeah.
for.
Mhm.
But do you think I would kind of going off of what you said? I would venture like maybe the dock of the Switch 2 is more like a lot more powerful than because I feel like all the dock does in the current Switch is just puts it on your TV. It doesn't
Mhm.
really help processing power or anything like that. It doesn't make the Switch stronger.
Mhm.
And so, and then you have maybe a little bit of a downgraded version in your hands because you're not having that extra processing power on a dock. So, but that, I don't know, like Switch and Nintendo and backwards compatibility.
Don't tend to
I
jack.
mean, there's a reason there's such a huge like emulator, community online because Nintendo would not let people play their games.
Well, I mean, okay, but like the Wii and the Wii U were the Wii, the Wii U, and the GameCube all had backwards or sideways, or they all had compatibility with each other.
The GameCube, you could play GameCube games on the Wii.
Hmm.
Okay, well,
I
I had forgotten about that. But
I remember just playing
you
it.
couldn't put an N64 cartridge in there. So
That's a good point. That is, yeah, those sons of bees. No, I don't know. I wish that Nintendo, like, I think in my heart of hearts, I want Nintendo to make something like bold and new and something that's like the Switch again. And by that I mean like the revolution of, all right, I play it on the go, boom, controllers come off, I'm playing it at home on my TV. I want something that is like that big again, but I kind of wonder if Nintendo's got the juice right now because I think it usually takes like a console generation and a half for them to get there. Granted, the Switch has been out forever, so maybe that's the case.
yeah, again, the analysts that are studying this are people who are studying finances.
Mm.
So I think that lines up. That makes a lot of sense. But I could totally see Nintendo being like, we can lose some money. I mean, they're not even losing money, but we can wait for a hardware money bump until 2025. We don't need to do this in 2024. And I doubt that there will be any leaks about it.
Mm.
So so yeah, all we can do is wait and see. But I would be very excited for Switch 2. I know my girlfriend would be as well.
Let's say I'm hoping. Okay, let's predict if the Switch 2 is coming at any point this year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take bets to see. I'm gonna say it would be September is when they're trying to launch a new console.
That's pretty good because I think usually console releases they don't want to put them like in November because what if they run out? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I guess for variety, I'll say October.
Okay. Okay.
But I'd say September is a great bet. So
I was like, we're betting. I'm going first.
I agree.
uh, yes, yes. Yeah, man. Switch to whatever that would be. I'm ready. I'm gonna buy it. I'm like, take my money, you guys. I've had the Switch for too long.
Yeah, yeah. Especially with all of the like mobile PCs that have been coming out, PlayStation Portal's been doing very well. I think Nintendo needs to get back in there with a product of their own. So
They do. They
Makes a
do.
lot of sense. All right, so for our first main topic of 2024, so this is a news story that came out about 3 weeks ago, but in December, with all the Game of the Year stuff, we had lots of other things to talk about, but it's something that stood out to me that I wanted to touch on. So the original creator of God of War, David Jaffe, for those of you who are not familiar, he did the original God of War games, or I think he did the first two, and ultimately, he has a podcast, or he has his own YouTube channel where he goes and he posts different opinions about a variety of things, but also like many things in the gaming industry. And he started talking about the modern iterations of God of War, being God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. And there's been some false reporting on this saying that, David Jaffe hates, what they've done with it and everything like that. And while that's not true, he doesn't hate it. He does recognize that 2018 God of War is a good game, which he better, because I personally have that game in my top 3 games ever. But he really dislikes Ragnarok, and the primary reason for that being that he doesn't like how the game, and particularly Kratos as a character, has changed, in that the game is not about like being an action movie anymore. The game is not, these really brutal takedowns and killing things and being a heavy metal icon is what I see, like a heavy metal poster when I hear what he's describing. And so he really dislikes it, and he was like, yeah, take all of your artsy fartsy stuff and get it out of here. And I have a lot of opinions on this, but I brought the topic in, Phil, so I want to hear your first impression of hearing him complain about modern Kratos as opposed to old Kratos.
Yeah, I watched a couple minutes of his video. I really should watch the whole thing, but shut up. Shut up, David Jaffe. Shut up. Like, sorry, the new game's just better. I played the old God of War games. He screams Calliope. He cuts off stuff's head. You know what's really cool sometimes? When you're not just like washed in a wave of blood and gore, and then you see a really cool bloody gory takedown, like when he crushes a giant's head with its own axe, or I don't know. There's just so many cool takedowns in that game, and like ripping people in half, that it's special when it happens. When you break Baldur's neck. Sure. At the very beginning of God of War 1. So many cool things that are brutal and actiony happen. There's just also story that is decent and well done.
Yeah.
And I think to call it artsy fartsy is just like, it comes off as salty and like kind of jealous that he's not making the God of War that everybody's like, oh yeah, this one's actually art.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it feels like to me. As I said, I believe he only worked on the first 2 God of Wars, or I don't know his connection to any of the PSP games. But I know that his original plan for God of War 3 was that, and he's talked about this in previous interviews, his original plan was Zeus is the starter boss fight. And you kill Zeus, and then you go and you fight the Norse gods, and you fight the Egyptian gods. So I think he's probably a little bitter that they took what was his idea of like, we're going to take Kratos and put him in a different mythology. So he's probably a little bit bitter there. And I think he probably knows he can't complain about God of War 2018 because of how good a game it was. But like separating Ragnarok from 2018 is really hard to do, I think, because they're the same. It's the same character, and I would also say it's like Kratos had previously. I think the last God of War game before 2018 was God of War Ascension, which is the one that had the multiplayer in it. And like by that time, I was so like done with Kratos's shtick, and like I've played God of War 1 through 3. I've played both the PSP game. I played every God of War game ever, except for like Kratos and like mini golf or whatever. I played Kratos in Mortal Kombat 9.
Yeah. Did you play Kratos in PlayStation All Stars? Because I
did.
Yes.
Oh, that's a deep cut right there. So anyway, so it's just like I've played all the games. I was pretty sick of Kratos as a character by the time I had done all that, because there really wasn't a lot of depth to what he was. And for me, and this is where I want to open it up to kind of a larger conversation. For me, Kratos needed to change in order to keep the God of War IP alive. Otherwise, it would have just ended, I think, which is fine. And like David Jaffe goes on to be like, well, then just make a different game if that's the game you want to make. And it's like, I hear that to a degree, but I think it's very artistically interesting to take a character that was kind of one, maybe two-dimensional, and really flesh him out. And like Kratos has always been popular, but now he's undeniably one of the like biggest video game icons. At least he's like Sony's video game icon, not Nintendo or anything like that. But anyway,
well, I think it's more satisfying too to see a character that's not just like doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Master Chief in Halo Unlimited or Halo Infinite is just doing more Master Chief stuff, which is like, I love that character, but it does feel like it's kind of encased in amber in the time of video games that it emerged in. Same thing with God of War. It was like the Mountain Dew, everything's extreme, let's have a sex mini game era of video games.
Yeah.
And to see that character then come out to like hey, we've all grown up with that, but now we're not really interested in those stories as much. So let's see this character reflect that is more satisfying. And also to see that this character lived on and matured and grew and didn't just stay stuck there in a place that was like very realistically bad for Kratos. Like Kratos, in a fit of rage, like because of his giving up his soul to the God of War, killed his family, and he is white with like their ashes. that is why his skin is that particular hue. So I don't know, just seeing the character have growth, I think, is healing in a weird way.
Yeah.
And it would be robbed of that to just have him be like, well, here I go killing again. Let me go get Ra and cut his head off, and also make that like. So, I'm going on a tangent here, but like to do that all in God of War 3 would have been so stupid and like lame and just like showy with no substance. Like, here's splitting the Norse pantheon into 2 games. We got enough time with everyone.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's still tons of brutal things that happen in the game. And, kind of just to defend the game against Jaffe's points, it's just like they don't pretend that the previous games didn't happen. Like they a huge, very minor spoiler alert for God of War Ragnarok, but a huge through line in that game is Kratos. He's like, I can't be that guy again. I can't go back to mindless, senseless killing. And he has to fight against that urge. And so it's like, it's not like they're ignoring what happened before. They didn't completely change the character, or I get they changed him in the sense that it's like, okay, what if we, like, obviously Kratos is a god, so he doesn't live like a human amount of years. But like if he was 30 by the end of God of War 3, then he's like, in his late 50s now. And so it's like, how does a 58-year-old act differently than they did when they were 30, or did they did when they were in their 20s, or whatever it is. And so it's like, it's not that the character is different. It's that the character has gotten older. The character has changed and seeks to, be better. That's their whole sorry, excuse me. Everybody gets
That's
one.
the thing of both games. They start off with him telling Atreus, be better, like when they're hunting. And then it comes back around, and it's funny. It's the PlayStation thing is like be greater. I was
Yeah.
like, you guys missed it by that much. You
Yeah.
could have just had the whole. But I agree 100% that it's so nice to see a character like in different phases of their life, and to see the hard fought and earned wisdom that Kratos has now. You can go back and play God of War 2 and see what he's referencing and be like, oh yeah, he went through this because he did this same thing that he's avoiding doing now.
Right.
God, it's so good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Now,
Sorry, Jaffe. It seems like
yeah,
you're sour, man. It seems like you
yeah,
wanted to be part of that, and or I don't. And again, like I will give him his credit. It's like this guy came up with God of
pioneered
War,
it.
you know.
Yeah,
So like he deserves his flowers for doing that. But it's just for him, it's just gotten so far away from what he originally envisioned. But I would argue that he completed his vision. You know,
man,
it's like
I'm one of the Barlog boys now. Corey Barlog is he's got my heart and soul. So when we were talking about this, we were thinking like, what other games have done something like this,
yes,
or rebooted and sort of evaluated themselves for the time. I think there's a lot of good examples. The first one that jumps to mind for me is Tomb Raider. I
yeah.
believe it was the 2016 Tomb Raider.
Absolutely, that's a great one. Because yeah, that's another game. It's like Tomb Raider. If it wanted to survive as an IP, it needed to grow up. It needed to not be Laura Croft, showing her thighs and boobs all over the place. And it's like, okay, we're actually gonna tell a story. She's gonna be pretty, and she's gonna look nice and everything, and be in shape. But like, we're gonna actually try to tell a story instead of just a bunch of sexy angles.
Yeah.
So
but the sexy angles are the story.
yeah,
It's,
don't understand.
Man, I wish that like YouTube people who were making the videos that were like every video game's gone woke, if they all had New York like accents of a cab driver, I would be a little happier in my world. Just because they'd be entertaining to listen to.
Be careful
in some
what
capacity.
you wish for.
The cab drivers union is like weirdly anti-woke and into games.
But that's it. Just games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other games that have grown up a bit. I brought up the example of Mario as being a game that doesn't really need to change, because the story is not really a significant part of any of the Mario games. And so Mario is more of an icon than he is a character, it feels like to me. And so if Kratos was more of an icon, yeah, I mean, maybe, but you still had cutscenes in the game. You still had story you were trying to tell. You still, in God of War 3, you had, Pandora as like, oh, she's like the replacement for my daughter. And so it's like, don't tell me that, him having a son that he's taking care of is so far out of the realm of what it was originally. Like,
Yeah.
what other
like
games?
his whole story is about father. Let's see. Sonic tried to do it when they did. Was it Sonic? It wasn't Unleashed. I mean, that's one where they've tried to reiterate, and they haven't really found it. Because I think they're, Mario exists almost in this weird dreamscape, like you said, where he kind of pops in and just does a little dance, and then he's on another like wacky adventure. Trying to think what other games have taken the character, and I think even this God of War is separate from Tomb Raider because Tomb Raider rebooted. They started with a new Lara Croft.
Right.
But God of War continued with that same character. And I don't think anyone else has done that. The Max Payne game, Max Payne 3, I believe.
Yeah.
Was, I think, as close as you could get where the story became more like realistic and more, I don't know, like grungy, gritty pulp, and less like weird pulp gothic.
Sure.
But even still, that was like that was within the trilogy of games. So yeah, I can't think of another one that's done it that well.
I would say I think the reason we're probably struggling to think of some is because God of War was the first game that it's like, we're going to take an IP that already exists. It's still going to be that game, but we are going to change it a lot from the storytelling, from the cutscenes, from the camera angle. Like the whole thing, God of War, the new God of War feels so much more personal because the camera is right there, as opposed to being this top down or far away view in the old God of War games, which like was really cool in its own right, like with the Poseidon, and so you got to see these huge fights because you were so zoomed back. And now it's like you still do have like the bigger fights, like the dragon in 2018, or the giant wolf fight in Ragnarok, but they are less frequent. But I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
and in all of those, I feel like God of War 1 through 3, they had a thing where you are a god, you don't care that much about mortal life or life in general, so you are far further removed. And then in the new ones, you are closer because you are more intimately connected with your son, the people around you. In that dragon fight, I could think of so many moments where I was like, oh no, Kratos is gonna die. Oh no, my boy is in danger.
Dwarf isn't. Everybody's in danger. Jesus.
Jeez,
Like,
yeah.
I gotta save everybody.
Yeah, I'm okay, and I guess I don't know. There's nothing that's like jumping to mind that did that. But what we should talk about is what game franchises could do that, or should do that. I suppose.
Lovely question. Yes. What are some game franchises, for lack of better words, that could grow up a little? Or I'll rephrase that because that's a little insulting. Or what did I say before we started recording? Could use a zhuzh.
Could you just
A little. Well, we just need a floof, a
just
something.
like fix their collar and send them on their way?
Yeah.
I have one option here, and I know
Okay.
they've kind of tried to do it, but I would love to see a sort of a reboot, retooling of Gears of War. Give us like another Marcus story, but make it like that first game where things are much more dangerous, and I don't know exactly what you could do to change it up, but make like maybe you're dealing with survival, you're dealing with all this other stuff to show how dire it is, and to show how like momentous your achievements and how badass your character is. That's one that I would love to see, because Gears of War holds a pretty special place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
It's not really done anything for a while,
Well, I mean, Gears 5 was good, but I mean, my problem with Gears 4 and 5, and I love Gears of War 2, I love Gears of War 2, the game, but I love it as a franchise as well.
Also,
Particularly Gears of War 3. Gears of War 2 was great, though, too. But I just feel like with the newer iterations of the game, it kind of felt like The Force Awakens, like Star Wars, where it's like, this is the same story that we've already done. And it's a new character, sort of, but it's the same story. And so I think if you were to judge Gears of War, I would like to see them expand the universe instead of trying to redo the universe. And so it's like, okay, we've cleared the continent, but there's this continent in the southern hemisphere we need to go deal with. And so you get a sense of the planet as a whole, or you could even space age it a little bit. Like it's been so long, Marcus probably would still be alive by that point, but it's been so long. We're expanding to other planets, and we're trying to settle this other, even if it was like, this is another planet in this solar system, and so you don't have to do like high sci-fi or anything like that. So I think that would be cool, but yeah, I need them to do something else than like, well, there's more grubs and these ones glow yellow, so they're different. They're different.
Hey, playing as a locust might be fun. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It's just one of them. Like,
yeah,
that would be a pretty interesting remix.
Yeah.
So what other games do you think could use this type of like?
I mean, you brought it up earlier, and we're talking about Microsoft games now, so I'd say Halo needs it desperately. The Halo Infinite campaign was laughable. Like the Spider-Man gameplay, when you can just use your grapple everywhere, that was amazing. Super fun gameplay. Nothing against the gameplay, but the storytelling, it's Master Chief being Master Chief, and it's the pilot who doesn't have a name, and it's Cortana, who I thought was evil in the last game, but I guess is not anymore.
She
And
got fixed. Don't worry about it. It happened
yeah,
off screen.
it should happen off screen. And so I think, but I don't know. I think Halo Story is kind of too far gone to. I don't know what you do really to judge that franchise.
Their story was just kind of too big in and of itself.
Yeah.
To like it's just the Eric Newliad books, the TV show. It's expanded in so many directions that you really have to like completely wash it to refocus. Honestly, I'd love like an ODST focused game.
Okay. Yeah.
Like that was one of my favorite Halo games, just because it was like you weren't playing as an invincible soldier. Even I think Reach did this as well, where like you were really at war, and the games made you feel that because like you would lose people, you were like completing these different objectives, but it was a war and not like one man's super heroic mission.
Yeah. So you're saying get away from Master Chief a little bit? Isn't that blasphemy?
Maybe get away from Master Chief and give me like a little bit more. This is what the war is like, and not like we've already lost.
I mean,
I'm gonna put a bomb on that plane or whatever.
Yeah, I would love that. Give me Battlefield 1 meets Halo. Like, let's go.
Ugh.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So the multiplayer would sounds fun too. I have an interesting game to bring up, and that is Zelda. Because essentially Zelda reinvents itself constantly. And so this is something that they've been doing, or I guess they reinvent themselves and they don't reinvent themselves at the same time, which is weird. And they've done it. I mean, how many different Zeldas have there been just with complete, different like concepts going on? Usually the gameplay is somewhat the same for the most part. But yeah, that's a franchise that's really like, yeah, we're going to mix it up every single time. Do you think that's easy because similar to Mario, like Link is more of an icon than a character?
Yeah, I think he's a stand-in for a fantasy hero's journey type of thing.
Sure. And it could be any fantasy. It's this episode on Video Game Miyazaki.
Yeah. That is I feel like really what they've tried to capture most recently. It would be really cool to see them like, for their next Legend of Zelda, what that take would be, like what a more I don't know, because like it was Miyazaki, but also like in their previous ones they've done like he's on a boat now this time, and he's cell shaded, and then they did like just so many different iterations of that character. I want to see what their next take is, and I think more than any of the other properties we've talked about, I trust them to do something new, because I don't think they would do the same like setting twice.
Sure.
Or thrice rather.
Okay.
I have another suggestion, and that would be Pokemon. I just want to see like a grown-up version of a Pokemon game. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that. Or like I'll tell you what. Since I was a little kid, I always wanted a Pokemon game where you played as the Pokemon instead of as the frickin' trainers. And I know that there have been a couple of games that have kind of done that,
like
but not
the Mystery Dungeon ones.
Yeah, but not to the degree that I have wanted them to do it, which is like if I want to be able to start as a level 5 Charmander, and I want this button to be jump, and this button to be Ember, and this button to be Metal Claw or Scratch or whatever. And they haven't really done that where you can like you have a game and then you can pick the Pokemon you start as and then be like, all right, I want to map this attack to this button or something like that. I think that would be really cool. Or like seeing Pokemon Stadium come back and having that be the way you fight. Or even if it was a mode, like where it's like you are controlling the Pokemon. You're not giving it orders while they stand there and do this.
Yeah.
There
was that Pokemon fighting game. Like I think something that would be cool is like an RPG, but with the controls of that Pokemon fighting game where you do have to do like a combo to do uppercut or seismic toss.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Something like that.
Okay.
That sounds good. That sounds good. All right, that's a good list. That's a good.
Yeah.
If I think of any, I will maybe bring it up in next week's episode.
Yeah.
But
That's a pretty solid, like, we've hit all the tent poles, really. You
yes,
know?
yes. That's a good way of putting it. But anyway, respect to David Jaffe, but yeah, man, you seem a little salty about it. So all right. Well, that concludes this week's episode.
Are you mad because you didn't get to make the cool axe, David? The one that Thor's to your hand? Or the Dropnir spear?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cooler than the chains, bud.
Well, all right. The chains,
No,
are,
the chains
cool.
are pretty cool.
Yeah, like, let's not. That's pretty cool. The Hydra fight in the first game, pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
So, but yeah, that's going to do it for our first episode for 2024. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Feel free to comment, to share. I'm thinking about. I have a love for Deep Rock Galactic on Steam. I'm just throwing this in at the very end. And the Steam Winter Sale is still going on until tomorrow. And I think I might just buy a copy of Deep Rock Galactic to gift someone. But everyone I know already has it. So
I don't know if I have it on Steam, but I definitely have it on Game Pass.
I'll
try and play some Deep Rock.
Yeah, I am a Deep Rock-aholic. And so I'm very good. I am very good. That's a great game. It's a great game.
I could get you in. I can get you out. We can get that gold, dude.
So,
we can get
maybe I'll buy some extra copies and maybe we can do a little giveaway or something like that.
That'd be fun to play with some folks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me this week, Phil. And peace out. We'll see you next week.